Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. I hope everyone's been having a nice weekend and getting some able to enjoy some of these last few weekends of summer before we get into the winter here. So although it is nice with the nights getting a little bit longer for astrophotography, certainly. So we've got another great show lined up for you tonight. Jaime Zapata, the newest member of the TAIC crew, will be speaking tonight about PixInsight processing. But before we get to that, let me just talk a little bit about the upcoming calendar, and I will pull that up here, share that tab. All right, so as I mentioned, so tonight, Jaime, and then next week, Dan Moomey will be back with us talking about building an off-the-grid remote observatory, and it should be pretty interesting to see everything that they've done to make that happen. Pretty amazing. And then the following week, Eric is going to do a presentation about processing and with hydrogen alpha and O3 in with RGB. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's come up with for that. And then Rod Pommier will be back to talk about globulars, and Craig Stocks, Gary M. with his VDB catalog, which he's finished. So we've got, and then we do get into November, and we do have some open dates. So as always, if someone out there, if you've got an idea, something kicking around in your head that you thought you might want to share, just send us an email. We'll get you on the show. So let me stop this share here. And as I mentioned, so next week, Dan Moomey is here tonight. And so Dan, can you give us just a little taste of what you will be talking about next week?
Yeah, sure. About 3 years ago, my friend Molly Wakely and we came across a plot of land in Bortle 2 skies in Arizona and just couldn't say no. So we bought it, and it'll be partly show and tell, partly videos of trials and tribulations, lessons learned, and then if you're crazy enough to try to do what we did, some advice on how to go about doing that. It's a tricky trade space to navigate, and it really comes down to what your requirements and what you're trying to achieve is. So we'll talk about some of those alternatives as well.
All right, well, that should be great. And we were able to get a little preview during the pre-show here while we were testing the video and whatnot. And so just what I saw was really interesting, and I'm dying to see the rest of it. So that'll be fun. So everybody tune in for that next week. So then that brings us to tonight's presentation by Jaime. And as I mentioned, Jaime's been with us now for a few months. Volunteered to help us out and with the streaming and some other things, which we certainly need around here. You know, this is an all-volunteer operation, so certainly the more folks we have, the easier it is to get everything done. So tonight, Jaime will talk to us about some techniques to speed up processing large data sets in PixInsight, and he's also going to share some tips about processing some difficult data. So Jaime, are you ready to take over and start your talk?
Yes, Patrick.
Great.
Let me share my screen first. I would like to pull up a presentation. In the meantime, thanks for the warm welcome. It's for me, it is an honor to be on the show tonight. So hopefully you will like my presentation. Yeah, so today's talk is inspired by the fact that the astrophotography community is diverse, with people at all different experience levels using a wide range of equipment. PixInsight is such a wonderful tool. It's an incredible tool, but you know, it's come with a very steep learning curve. I don't blame PixInsight creators. I have been in the software and data industry for quite a long time, and believe me, producing this kind of software is very hard, especially when you have such a small team. As users, we might want PixInsight to be super user friendly, but are we willing to pay maybe twice as much, multiple times the current price for that convenience? Probably not. It's important to remember that PixInsight was designed as a scientific image processing program from the start. And it was never meant to be a push your dummy application, but rather it's a toolkit full of precision tools that certainly require time to master. This software doesn't come with a beginner's guide, and the information that is available is either diverse or scattered. Of course, except for some well-known paid learning options. When I first learned about PixInsight, I realized it wouldn't be easy, but at the same time, I thought, if I deal with challenges every day in this hobby, why not accepting the PixInsight one? After all, the moment the astrophotography would stop being a challenge for me, I guess I will need to find something else for sure. Given this, I have noticed that over the past few years, or actually even over the past couple of months, PixInsight, along with various authors, have been introducing scripts that are certainly more problem focused. This approach saves us, for example, to remember that a specific tool like, I don't know, an HDR multi-scale transform or a local histogram equalization is meant for recovering contrast and details. But these tools or new scripts instead allows us to use like Photoshop-like sliders, maybe previews that are certainly helping a lot. So here is my PixInsight for mere mortals fast processing guide, a map that which is meant to help you navigate through the software, through the tools, and figure out where each tool fits into the whole equation. First, just a quick intro about me. By the day, I am a software and data engineer working from home for US-based companies. Like many of us, amateur astrophotographer by night. I'm something in the middle when it comes to experience, not a beginner, not quite an expert. I guess I need to start writing my own PixInsight script to be considered like that. As you might have noticed, English is not my primary language, so if I make any mistakes, please just bear with me. Hopefully my English wouldn't sound like Klingon. I'm from Ecuador, the land where, both hemispheres meet along this imaginary line called the equator. Yes, here you can straddle the equator, you can hit the beach by the next day, explore the Amazon the day after, and maybe wrap up your week on a cruise through the Galapagos Islands. This is also the place where the sky first meets the earth. The following picture shows Mount Chimborazo, which is our highest peak, and a beautiful snow-capped volcano. It's considered to be the furthest point from the Earth center. So locals here like to say that we are closest to the sun, or that we are closest to the stars. Of course, we know that's not scientifically accurate since the Earth position changes with the seasons. But if the living and breathing Amazon and the Andean spirits, which by the way reside on these beautiful snow-capped volcanoes, bless me with a clear night, I can enjoy maybe with a Bortle 5, Bortle 6 sky from home, and maybe visit Bortle 2 locations. I can target DSOs on both celestial hemispheres. Imagine that pretty much Andromeda and Carina are visible roughly at the same 45-degree altitude. And speaking on the Andean spirits, indigenous people here traditionally view the mountains as deities. While taking this picture, along with some friends, of course, we took part in a well-known indigenous ceremony to show our respects to this beautiful mountain, to El Taita Chimborazo. Taita means father in Quechua. I know that for those of us that are more scientifically inclined, this might seem a bit out there, might seem to be silly, but that's how it works here if you would like to have a clear sky. And it was clear indeed during that night. Just a random thought, maybe we should reconsider our consumption habits before criticizing this type of tradition, and might want to show our own respect to the Pachamama, to the Mother Earth more often. By the way, don't worry, no young virgin women were harmed during this now very tourist-friendly ceremony. Let me briefly describe my equipment next. I have certainly aimed to have telescope that cover various focal lengths. I have an HD8, which is pretty much right here. It's connected, it is shown to be connected to a hyperstar lens right now. I also have the classic and renowned Samyang Rokinon 135 millimeter lens. And this is maybe my personal favorite, the Takahashi 85 Baby Q scope, Baby Q2. I'm sure I also have a 14 millimeter lens somewhere here. It's not yet on a mount, so I guess it's still connected to my DSLR. I am a monocam user. I have captured images using both broadband filters and also narrowband filters, but I am also an one-shot color user. I have got some of my images to share. I have captured planetary shots, deep sky objects, and even some solar images. You will probably notice that I started the opposite way I was supposed to, with starting with the longest focal length. And now I am gradually moving towards more wide field targets. Last weekend I was at a star party and hoped to get a nice Milky Way shot. But as it turns out, you can do astrophotography and be part of the organizing committee at the same time. I guess that's a lesson learned. Oh yeah, and I just recall, I just remembered, we didn't pay our respects to Mount Cotopaxi, which is this guy. That's probably why the sky got so cloudy before midnight. Despite that, we had a lot of fun, and I might get another chance by the next weekend, fingers crossed, for having clear skies. I'm already praying to the spirits of the Andes. All right, let's dive into the main topic. If we were to categorize astrophotographers based on our experience and gear, and I promise this was not meant for creating division, but we would have those individuals who have totally nailed the science and art of astrophotography. Let's call them the gods, the goddesses, or the demigods. You know, these are the folks chilling on Mount Olympus, having access to Border One skies with remote observatories. You know the type. By the way, disclaimer, we absolutely adore you guys and gals. Your work is like a beacon of inspiration for us, the mere mortals. Speaking of us, the mere mortals, we are still on the quest to find the perfect gear combo, often on a budget. And we are trying to sharpen our processing skills with PixInsight, or even using simpler software. Tonight's talk is all about giving you a quick but super useful workflow to help you get started with PixInsight. If you are a beginner or want to polish your current skills, we are climbing through this challenging path, so I'm sure that this will help you out. If you are already a god, you might not need this guide because you are all-powerful, almighty. But I don't know, even Zeus himself might struggle to keep up with the latest PixInsight scripts and updates. So let's get started. This slide summarizes the macro steps that we are all used to. Even if you are a beginner, I strongly recommend you taking the respective calibration frames. You know, all the darks, all the flats, all the dark flats. For frame inspection now, the easiest process could be the one called blink. But I have to recognize that this occasion, and this only occasion, I cheated and I used the subframe selector for the frames that I am going to use tonight. Give me just a second. I need to pull the process. Yeah, so this is my PixInsight for Mere Mortals guide. This is a legend. Everything that is on green is a macro stage on the process. These are tools that are already included in PixInsight. With these other colors, I have the external tools that might be free. There are other bunch of external tools that are paid. Let's continue with this presentation. And I certainly would like to introduce what is called the fast batch preprocessing, or FBPP. This process is remarkably good because it really makes your process shorter. It was designed with focus on the speed rather than getting a perfect result. For example, let's compare the processing times I experienced in both FBPP and comparing these to WBPP. So let me go to the presentation here. And by the way, I was talking about the subframe selector. This is really to use. This is certainly not for a beginner. For a beginner, you can start using Blink. But as you get more experience over the tools, I really recommend using this one. And it's really easy to use. It allows you to filter all your frames using certain kind of criteria. So for example, I use an expression like this over the subframe selector. It just means that I'm classifying the stars based on full width half maximum, which is a quality measure of how your stars are. Another one is eccentricity, how round your stars are. There is also the median, and there are also the number of stars that are counted over your frames. These two lines pretty much represent the standard deviation that you have over your data set. The one that is darker represents one standard deviation, and the one that is lighter represents the second standard deviation. So I'm making an expression based on the second standard deviation. I, for example, filter out any kind of frame that could be greater than 2 standard deviations. And I also do the same on eccentricity, and I am also doing the same on the median. And I'm doing the same on the stars, but using just a different operator greater than. But this is really to use. So this is the one that I use to pre-filter my subframes before starting tonight. After that, you could easily use the fast batch preprocessing. I am not going to attempt to process anything with FBPP tonight due to time, but I would like to say that I have already processed 950 LRGB frames using fast batch preprocessing, and it took me an hour and a quarter. If you compare this exactly the same frames, but using WBPP, at least on my hardware, it took 11 hours with everything activated, including drizzle integration. I was not doing any drizzle integration on fast batch preprocessing, but essentially this FBPP process is 10 times faster. If you are a one-shot color user, maybe you are even, the process would be even faster. this process using 250 OSC frames, it took like less than an hour. As much preprocessing is certainly the newer trend on PixInsight. And the base of all this process is something that is called fuzz integration. Let me talk about this later. But if we are willing to compare FBPP and WBPP, you can expect these slides. Basically, WBPP is a complete full feature process that covers all scenario. FBPP is certainly a simplification with less option that can handle most scenarios. WBPP is weighted. FBPP is a simple average for all the processing that is related to bias, darks, and flats, mats, plus some weighting if you decide to do so. This has a configurable rejection method. It has automatic rejection with standard parameters. This is the most important difference. WBPP is using a star alignment, the well-known star alignment plus image integration by default. On the contrary, FBPP uses what is called fast integration with default settings. Here on WBPP, drizzling is fully supported. Here on FBPP, drizzle is certainly supported, but it is not recommended. PixInsight developers are still working on a more accelerated process for drizzle integration under FBPP. So we certainly will need to wait for it, but we can also apply drizzle on FBPP if needed. WBPP has proven to be slow and impractical when you handle thousands of images. And FBPP, as I already described, is maybe 10 times faster and can handle thousands of images. Both now support cosmetic correction and also astrometric solution. This is something that was not present on the first version that was released for FBPP, but now this is absolutely supported. FBPP, as I already mentioned, is its foundation is fast integration. Fast integration is a process that is done in mainly in memory during the normalization, registration, and integration phases. It has a parallelized pipeline that also helps with memory limitation, but it also takes advantage of the multiple cores that you have on your processor. So it's essentially faster because of that. It also has a different registration and integration algorithm. It simply uses homography, which is simply a projective transformation, instead of using the more complex thin plate splines that are present on the WBPP process that are even that can even handle distortions. FBPP is certainly not meant for handling big and wide data sets that have a lot of distortion. When it comes to integration, the integration on FBPP is global instead of local. Of course, you need to take into consideration that FBPP, your data set, this is not meant for support strong gradient or distortion that are usually present on white fields. And for this, WBPP is still the recommendation. FBPP can certainly handle less than 30 frames. So if a beginner would like to start with this, it's absolutely all right. Of course, you can have more details about this fast integration process over the manual, and the link is provided as a part of the presentation. Of course, for example, this is a white field that is coming from that comes with a lot of distortion. So this is certainly something that FBPP is not prepared for. Okay, let's get right into my guide. So I have a data set that is already prepared. I have all my frames that have been integrated here. I will be doing an LRGB integration. And let me start with a normal and require dynamic crop process. Of course, if you are going to use WBPP, you might not need to perform this cropping procedure. So using crop is really straightforward. For the beginners, I would like to recommend to you that instead of navigating the tool this way, go to process, all process, and then find what you need. Maybe the crop process that should be here, or dynamic crop that should be right there. I would like to encourage you to use the shortcut Control Alt and P, display this process explorer, and simply search for the tool that you need. Then click over the tool, do double click over here, and then you will have the tool that you need without navigating using the menus. Doing the crop is really straightforward. I wouldn't like to crop using certain kind of random box because I have already inspected my frames. The blue frame is maybe the worst. So I would like to use a crop which has a box that is already defined. So let me crop this L integrated frame, and let me also crop this red integrated frame. I am not going to do the same with the G and B frames because I would spend a lot of time doing that. During tonight, I would be just processing the L frame and the R frame. Okay, once that the integrated frames are already cropped, you have a number of options in PixInsight, as you might know, for dealing with gradients. But on this occasion, as this is meant to be an accelerated process, let's give it a chance to the automatic DBE. This tool is available on this SETI Astro group. Yeah, it's using the tool is pretty straightforward. I would like to define the area in which I wouldn't like the dynamic background extraction to place the sample point. So if you hit the shift key here, you can mark the area in which you wouldn't like to have the sample points. I would like to replace my target image and then execute the process. The process should be really quick. It is already completed, and here is the background that was extracted from my frame. Let's do exactly the same using this red frame. Actually, all the frames that I have right now are pretty bad in quality. I was essentially taming a hyperstar. It's really a good beast, but it needs to be tamed. So let me do the same here. I wouldn't like the process to place the sample points there. So of course, you could also use Graxpert. Yeah, let's look at the extracted background. Oh, I didn't replace the frame. Just bear with me for a minute. Let me repeat the process. I'm going to automatic DB again. Let me quickly select the area in which I wouldn't want the tool to place the sample points, and now I'm going to replace the target image. I wouldn't like to have more windows floating around. So that's it. So we have completed this first stage, which consists in background removal. By the way, my data looks pretty bad. I was taming my own hyperstar, and instead of having a star, I was dealing with this like arrow like stars. Of course, I was collimating during this step, but after the collimation, I got like a perfect circle here. But nevertheless, my edges looked quite so bad. So let's see, we wouldn't be able to save the night, to save the session using this accelerated process. Then what I have next here is the channel combination. I'm going to defer the process a little bit because my data is really bad. I have like very bad and ugly stars. So let me start with blur exterminator first. My usual process is the other way. I usually integrate first and then apply blur extermination and then remove the stars. But in this case, I'm going to correct the stars first just for this occasion because the data is really, really bad. Yeah, bear with me for a minute. Of course, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can accelerate this processing in a great deal if you enable the CUDA extensions. There is a lot of documentation on over the internet. You can by simply googling for a minute, you will be able to find the guide that explains how to apply these CUDA extensions and make the blur termination works in pretty much a minute or so. So let me show you maybe my edge. This is how the data looked like after the stacking and before the blur extermination. This is one of the most remarkable process that PixInsight could have right now. Of course, this process is paid, but even for beginners, it simply brings you a lot of benefit. It really fixes your data. It is executing pretty fast on my machine because I have these CUDA extensions and pretty much an NVIDIA card. So yeah, let's give it just a few seconds for completing these steps. After applying blur exterminator, and note that I am just using the default settings, I will need to remove the stars. So what's next? Here I'm going to use the star exterminator. This is another plugin from Marcy Astro. The alternative should be using a StarNet 2. So let me find Star Exterminator. And let me remove the stars from the L frame and also from the R frame. The G and B frames are already processed just for the sake of the presentation. Should be pretty fast as well. Even StarNet gets the benefit for if you enable CUDA on your workstation. Yes, so here I have my L stars, which I don't need them, by the way. And let me remove the stars from the red frame as well. I already combined these images before doing blur and star extermination, so, and the result was like pretty bad. Okay, I believe I'm all set. Let's continue with our processing. By the way, I'm following this path, which is a basic or fast path, but this looks more like my day-to-day processing. Of course, here I am using weighted batch preprocessing. I have just started to use fast batch preprocessing. So during tonight, let's follow this this process that is over the left-hand side. But if you would like something that is more advanced, you could go and follow this intermediate or advanced process. If you need something that would be easier than this, you probably won't need PixInsight, not at least for the time being. If you would like something that is more advanced, feel free to plug in anything that you might want, anything that you might like into this processing. Okay, so I was going the opposite way. Now let's combine all the channels using this pretty known LRGB combination. So let me look for LRGB combination here. Yeah, it's already here. So on this occasion, I'm going to combine the red, the green, and the blue channel. I'm used to increase the saturation here. And I have also activated the chrominance noise reduction checkbox. By the way, in order for you to see the options that I am specifying, let's use this magnifier tool. So this is pretty much the options that I have just selected. So I have my LRGB combination here. Let me change the identifier to RGB, and then let me do a string transfer function. Of course, you might have noticed that the colors are not aligned. The visual stretch that I just did is not. The channels are linked. So let me use another script, which is available here in this toolbox, which is called auto linear fit, in order to make the channels equal. Of course, in a certain kind of advanced scenario or intermediate scenario, you could also use spectrophotometric color calibration. This is meant to be, for tonight at least, a fast processing workflow, so I wouldn't like to use SPCC. Yeah, but it seems that the channels are pretty aligned right now. What's next on my process? In case you end up with certain, as I haven't used spectrophotometric color calibration, as I pretty much have a greenish cast on my image. So I would like to use this tool, which sources Bill Blanchard, which is called Modify SENR version 6. That is available right here. So I would like to apply that over my image. So you can remove that greenish cast or even a magenta cast. You have to recall I'm processing fast. I have still like a purple cast, but let's leave it for now. I have already applied blur exterminator and star exterminator, so let's go next. Then your image at this stage might need some adjustment. For example, I can end up with some speckles, or due to the star removal process. That's why I'm going to apply now this process, which intention is is removing this kind of failures, which is called the blemish blaster. The blemish blaster, as Sadie Astro already explained, is available right here in this menu. First, let me apply an auto STF function over this image. And let me go to the spot that I need to remove. The usage of the tool is pretty fast. You just need to hit the Shift key and then highlight the region that in which you would like your correction. Then you need to hit execute, and then your spot is gone. Of course, you can go as far as you might like. I'm applying the correction over the main image. PixInsight was certainly lacking of this tool a few months ago. We had to use more like complicated tools. But right now, we have this wonderful blemish blaster. Of course, if you are an almighty god, you might not need it. Let's go over to noise exterminator. And this is a step that you could perform using either noise exterminator, Grasper the noise, or any other tool that might be around. Yeah, so I have noise exterminator here pretty much with the default settings. Let me just increase the detail slider a little bit, just a little bit, and let me apply it over the image. Notice that I am still on the linear stage. I haven't stretched my image yet. And exactly the same steps that I applied over the for the RGB frame, I need to apply over the L frame as well. The noise exterminator seems to have destroyed the image, but you cannot tell that only after stretching. I can also activate this 24-bit stretch option, and the image would look better that way. I have not permanently stretched my image yet. So let me do the same over the L frame. I need to call noise exterminator here as well, using pretty much the same settings. Yeah, this frame was already background extracted, and this is not yet stretched. Okay, so I believe I'm all set for the time being. Let's go over the process. So in sort of kind of a more advanced scenario, we have this wonderful tool, which is called the generalized hyperbolic stretch. There are users that are simply using the screen transfer function plus an histogram transformation for doing the stretch. But just over the latest month, Astro came up with this wonderful tool that does the same, but in a simple to use script. So I would like to stretch. Let me cancel this for a moment. Let me open the L frame. And then let's go to script. And let's give it a chance to statistical stretch. The L frame is already selected. I would be using just the default settings. I'm using this target median of 0.25, which is recommended for nebula, for deep sky objects. I have also another this 0.10 threshold that is meant for galaxies. Let's just apply the default one. Let's go over to the red frame. And let's apply statistical stretch as well. Pretty much with the same parameters. So now I'm doing a permanent stretch. Yeah, that's it. Please recall that this is meant to be a super accelerated process. I am just like checking my data. I'm just trying to save the night and those like odd stars that I had with while taming my hyperstar. The next process is the selective color correction, which is also a script that is available here. It's the last one. Yeah, but I don't want to apply this over the. No. I need to perform the integration first. Once that my images are stretched, yeah, bear with me for a second. So here is my RGB frame. Yeah, I was trying to apply the tool over the R frame, which is of course not integrated yet. So I would like to use this selective color correction over my RGB frame. Was it stretched? I believe I forgot stretching it. Yeah, it is not. It is not. So I was stretching the red frame instead of the RGB one. So let me apply the statistical stretch here as well. Yeah, I was stretching the red frame instead. Sorry about that. Okay, now that the frame is stretched, now I can apply the selective color correction. Okay, the advantage of having this selective color correction is that you might have your mask ready and available here. So if, for example, if I would like to highlight the red tones, I have already here a mask which I can also customize here, and essentially I can apply these changes over the red tones only. For example, let's make an experiment and let's try to provide more red to this frame, and maybe let's apply a little bit more saturation. Let's apply this over the image. Okay, let's do something over the, maybe over the highlights. Let me try to, for example, here is a mask that the tool automatically generated for the highlights. And let me try to increase the saturation over these highlights. Just for having like a demonstration with the tool. Let me apply the changes over the image. And that's it. Okay, I'm done with this selective color correction phase. Here is where both either the beginner or fast processing and also the more advanced process come together. The next step would be doing a step called image blend. In a regular scenario, once that you have the L frame stretched and also the RGB frame stretched, I'm going to use the LRGB combination for bringing those frames together. But in this case, let's give it a try with this image blend procedure, which is pretty new, by the way. So the image blend procedure is located right here over this utility menu. Here I have image blend. And instead of doing the regular LRGB combination, I can use this tool instead. So I believe that I have already set up the parameters that I needed for this tool. I am doing what is called a color combination here for combining both frames together. So let's give it a try. Here I can move the black points, the highlights, in order to tune up the image a little bit. Okay, I believe I'm all set. This is my newer LRGB frame. Here in these steps, you can apply all kinds of adjustments over that are available in PixInsight. For example, I can start dealing with the HDR areas. For example, I can recover details with local histogram equalization first, and then use an HDR multi-scale transform for recovering details over the washed out areas. Let's start with local histogram equalization. So let me hit Control-Alt, whoops, Control-Alt-P. Let me go over local histogram equalization. I have it right here. Local histogram equalization is meant for recovering details. So here I would like to start with a with a kernel radius, which is over 100. Let me try with 150, and maybe using a contrast limit that should be lower than the default, which should be pretty much 1.3. And let me apply this not so hard, not using a 100% amount, but just, let's say, 2/3. This is meant, if I specify a bigger kernel radius, this is meant for recovering the bigger structures. So let me apply the tool. This should be pretty quick. And then I will go over the smaller ones. For the smaller ones, you need to, maybe let's use a preview. And let's specify like a lower kernel radius, maybe sort of equal to 50 or less than that. Let's use like, let's say 40. For the contrast limit, I can leave it as it is right now. And for the amount, let me just use maybe a 50%. This way you are recovering the structures that are really, really small. Okay, all set. Then after recovering the details, you might like to apply, depending on your data, you can emphasize, for example, the dark structures using this dark structure enhance script. Of course, I have applied this over the preview. I would like to, let me delete the preview and apply the local histogram equalization over the entire frame. So I was applying these settings first. I believe I already applied this over the entire frame. Yeah, that's maybe too much. I applied it twice. Let me just bring the details in the smaller areas. I believe I used like 30. And I would like to apply just half of the power of this tool. Okay, all set. Then let me go to the dark structure enhancing. This is something that might not be needed in case of this image, but let's try it out. That way, this structure might look nicer. You just have to try it out. Okay, it might be too much. It might be all right for certain people. Let's finish that with the retouching. Of course, with these kind of HDR images, maybe the cores of the nebula can be blown out. So you can start using this HDR multi-scale transform, but there is a simple process that was created by Russell Croman. Right now, HDR multi-scale transform is incorporating these suggestions, but for this example, let's just use the simplified process that works with one touch. So this is the Russell Croman's color-corrected HDR-MT. If you would like to apply the more advanced tool, you can go ahead and apply that as well. Yeah, so I have recovered the details on this core. Okay, what's next? If you are not used to using the curves transformation, even for a beginner, you really need to know how to use this tool. In this case, I'm just going to apply this tool for enhancing the saturation. Maybe I could have you could use the same also in the tool that I showed earlier, the selective color correction. You can apply saturation using masks there. In a more advanced process, I would have masked the core of the nebula, which is the main subject, and not apply this kind of saturation over the entire image, but just to the core of the nebula, or just to this region. But let's in this case, let's apply to the entire image for the sake of time. Yeah, so let me increase the saturation. This maybe is too much. Let me go with an intermediate point like this, and I'm going to apply the result over the image. Let me reset, and you could also go over the lightness, and then here you can simply apply, let's say, a contrast curve. That's maybe too much. That should be all right. You can spend several minutes, if not hours, doing this kind of adjustments. I believe that I have some background here, which the tool didn't remove. If you would like to experiment, you could also try at this stage maybe the Raxper plugin. It works on both linear images and also on delinearized image stretches images as well. I'm just experimenting with this data. I know that it went quite bad, but I believe I'm saving the night anyway. Yeah, so it did remove this nasty background here, and the image looks nicer. What's next? Of course, in a more advanced scenario, you can have use masks that are either generated using this range selection process, or either the FAME process or the game process. Of course, FAME is newer, also provided by SETI Astro. This allows you to customize the mask, especially for the galaxies, in a pretty nice way. Okay, I believe I'm all set for at least for the nebula. Now it's time for stretching the stars. For the stars, I have already combined the R, G, and B channels for the sake of time. But the stars are not yet stretched. So let me apply in this accelerated process something which comes from SETI Astro as well, which is called the star stretch. More advanced users might want to apply the arc shine stretch as well in order to keep the colors over the stars. I believe arc shine stretch is Eric's favorite. But in this accelerated scenario, let me use this one. So using this pretty much default settings, I believe I'm all set. The stars look really nice. Of course, I knew my stars were like so ugly, so I might need to capture more frames for fixing these stars. Let me just execute this tool. And that's it. I have my stars already stretched without much effort. Then let me use this other wonderful script provided by Mike Cranfield and Bill Blanchard, which name is Screen Stars. This is available right here. And let me fuse both images together. I'm joining together the LRGB frame along with the RGB stars that I just delinearized, that I just stretched. And let me apply that over the main frame. Yep, I believe I'm all set. Let me close this. Just by clicking a couple of buttons. Of course, I believe that the image looks quite good by now, but certain kind of other scenarios might require the usage of this star reduction tool. So let me zoom over this area. Yeah, the stars looks pretty nice. They might not need reduction at all. If I would like to keep the smaller stars, I just need to initialize this small star protection. There are several methods that are available here for star reduction. You might want to choose the one that might fit your scenario. Observe that if I enable the small star protection, the smaller stars just come in. But if I disable that, they simply disappear. So it depends on you. It depends on your taste. Let me enable that for the time being. This is using strong reduction over a method that is called star method. Yeah, let me apply these settings. I believe we are doing good. Okay, let me close the tools. Of course, you can do in a more advanced scenario, you can do this, both the star integration and also the star reduction along with pixel math. But hopefully right now we have scripts that have been designed using a task-based approach. Okay, I believe I'm all set. No, I'm not yet set because I need to rotate this image using the process which name is, okay, 1 second. Fast rotation. Yeah. I took these images using an hyperstar, so let me fix this image that needs to be rotated 180 degrees. And also, as you might have noticed, I was using a hyperstar. I was using just one mirror of my setup. So I also need to make an horizontal mirror over this image. Okay, at this stage, I believe that I am all set. You can pretty much use this image. Of course, my data was pretty bad, but I believe that I saved the effort that was spent over the night. You might want to sign your work using this other tool from Serie Astro. I would need to select my RGB starry image and my logo image. And then let's say I would like this to be 100 pixels apart. Yeah, it even has my signature. I didn't have to use Photoshop or any other kind of external tools to do this last step of processing. What's remaining? Of course, you can use external apps for doing any kind of fine tuning on the color or over the details. I have already added my signature. If you might like to still use curve transformation or any other kind of similar process for when printing your image. I don't think this image deserves to be printed. I was just experimenting with the hyperstar. I know that my stars might have still a color fringing. I might need to acquire a new session just focusing on the stars. Yeah, they might still have a little bit of color fringe. But I believe that I really saved the night. At least comparing with the initial state of the data, I believe I'm all set. Note that I have used this accelerated process, which was not meant maybe for creating an APOD, an astronomy picture of the day, but it was just for testing out my data, having the advantage of the fast batch preprocessing now. Speaking of the AI tools that I use today, I really like to use Blur Exterminator. Don't be afraid on using AI tools. They are just like customized functions. For example, if I have some data in and the rule here in this machine is multiplied by 10, the output is likely to be 600. The same technique is pretty much used for Blur Exterminator, but instead of using like mathematics here, this is just using machine learning, what is called machine learning techniques, in order to train the function that is residing on this machine, that is residing on this black box. So don't be afraid to apply artificial intelligence where it is needed. This is exactly the same where I applied, for example, an HDR multi-scale transform. HDR multi-scale transform is also a function or a group of functions. And Blur Exterminator is no more than that. Of course, this requires effort. This requires training over large data sets in order to define the parameters that this function is going to use inside. But at the end of the day, is no more than using a function that is going to be applied over the data. Of course, we wouldn't want you to create this. This is an image that has been created with generative AI. Of course, our art, our astrophotography tools are not meant for that. If you would like to create something like this, that exists just on your imagination and on your screen, but this is not meant for being a good astrophotography. This is my hometown. This is the Taita Chimborazo again. Of course, here the author has superposed a Milky Way over this mountain, but this is not even in a position where the Milky Way is supposed to be. So these photos are really fake. These are, we shouldn't be creating these types of images, this type of creations, but instead let's focus on a process like the one that I have exposed tonight. Guys, the microphone is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Jaime, for that. That was really impressive the way you were able to make something out of that data, which, as you said, was pretty rough there at the start.
Exactly.
So, and I have to say, I haven't really played around with the fast batch pre-processing, but I'm blown away by just the difference in the speed, the 10-to-1, and like you mentioned, and that was just with less than 1,000 images. If you were, let's say, trying to do a couple thousand images, you're going to just run WBPP for 20 hours, or who's going to do that? So, so that's a pretty impressive tool. I don't know if you were able to figure out kind of what you're giving up with the fast BPP, if there is much, in terms of quality or that type of thing. So
Unless you have like a strong gradients, and unless you have like pretty bad distortion over your images, there is no reason in which you shouldn't be using FBPP. I believe that this is going to be the next standard. This is linked to when you are doing planetary images. Of course, you are doing this technique which is called Loki imaging that we are all pretty much used to. This fast imaging technique is pretty much like Loki imaging, but applied to deep sky objects. And more people are really accumulating data using like lower integration times. Maybe you don't expose your frames for 30 seconds or more, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, but you just use seconds, and then you use this kind of fast batch preprocessing for doing your integration. It's just another way for proceeding with your stacking.
Well, it seems like a tool that was really needed, because as you mentioned, that is a trend of folks doing just many subs of shorter shorter individual length, and so the old tools just can't really handle that. So
yes, exactly. In my case, I ended up with these almost 1,000 30-second frames coming from my Hyperstar setup. And I said, yeah, this is really the occasion for testing out FBPP. And it was great. I mean, PixInsight, you can apply PixInsight in several ways. And this is just like another tool in your tool belt, in your toolbox.
Right. Well, we all know PixInsight certainly can do a lot of things, and does a lot of things, well and better than really any other software. But fast is not necessarily one of its strong suits. So, some of this stuff I think needs to be improved. And it was neat too to see all the, kind of, you put all the different scripts together, or so many of these scripts that have come out just in the last few months. When you start looking at them all lined up like that, it's kind of mind-boggling, really, just how much value has been added to PixInsight here by these things. And SETI Astro we had on a few weeks back, and of course Bill Blanchard's scripts, and just there's so many of them now. And
exactly, you don't have a manual. You don't have a manual, or pretty much you don't know where the tools fit in.
Yeah.
So that was my intention tonight, trying to make like a consolidated process that can apply all these tools that have been recently emerging.
Yeah, and I imagine you could do all that stuff with Pixel Math if you knew what you were doing.
Exactly. If you would like to go like the longer way, feel free to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's
Jaime, I was interested in your flow chart that you had there, where you put all the processes and scripts and everything else one after the other in the flow chart. Over the last 3 or 4 maybe weeks, maybe a little bit longer, on the Astro Imaging channel, we've had some really powerful stuff with people showing us how to process things, including SETI Astros a couple of weeks back and stuff like that. I made it a point to take everything that I think I've learned from all that and make a set of action icons that just sit over there on the edge. And it's somewhat reminiscent of your flow sheet, but over on the edge of my workspace, I've got, every process I'm going to go through all the way down. And I found it very helpful to keep track of what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, and all that other stuff. And I think that could be done with your flow sheet by incorporating action icons, rather than go back to the menus each time to try to find out which ones you're working with.
Yeah, I'm not used to have like a lot of icons on my desktop, so this is pretty much the way I work. But I don't know. Every person is different. Don't be forced to use the tools that I use, or to have the desktop that I use, or have the icons arranged in certain way. By the way, I'm going to provide this this presentation as PDF. So stay tuned in the Astro Imaging channel, because this is just a few clicks away to be exported in a PDF format. And we can incorporate that as a link into this into tonight's presentation.
Yeah, I can post it in our drive and then put the link in the video description.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I don't know that we have any unanswered questions at this point.
Yeah. Well, I've been monitoring. We're good.
All right, great. Well, I think that wrapped it up then. So Jaime, thanks again for your presentation. That was great.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me tonight to be the presenter.
Absolutely.
And I'd just like to kick in again. We do need more volunteers to keep running the Astro Imaging channel. We need presenters, and we need some people just to help us in the day-to-day work of getting this done. I mean, nobody has to work that hard, but if many hands make light work. So please hit the contact button. Come see us.
As I posted in the chat, we could use somebody to manage our social media, to include Facebook, which is mainly where we are now, but also potentially expanding to other platforms. Yeah, so we could use somebody to manage the social media if you're interested in doing that.
Mm-hmm. And presenters. We always
need presenters.
And as Jaime said, I mean, he's better imager than, we're all better imagers than we let on. Okay, let's say that. But there's some people that think that, oh, I'm not good enough to be on there. Yeah, everybody's got some doubts about them, especially when it comes to like doing something on YouTube. But basically, we're sitting around on a Sunday night, and some of you are drinking beer, I suspect, and watching the show. And yeah, we don't want somebody who doesn't know what he's doing, but most of us know what we're doing and can contribute something. So step forward and be part of it.
We haven't had much in the planetary or solar image processing department in a while. So if you do much planetary imaging, that could be a good topic to bring on as a refresher update on how to do lucky imaging.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, Molly. Well, hey, take us out.
All righty. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Come back next week for
Have a good
Dan's
night.
talk.